To give you my heart.
Hello, welcome to my channel. Not welcome back. Haven't actually got any videos on this channel yet. Nice to meet you. My name's Billy. For those of you who don't know me, I am 17. I live in the UK and I have a 3-week-old daughter named Cassidy Quinn. So today I thought I would do my labour story because I've been asked about it a lot, and I still, even though I had her 3 weeks ago, I still do get quite a lot of questions about how my birth went, how my labour went, everything like that, because you just get curious. And I had quite an atypical birth. So Cassidy is currently laid behind me on like a breastfeeding pillow. She's just eaten and she's settling back down to sleep, so she might be a bit noisy. I might have her on my lap for some of the video. I don't really know, depends. So on the 29th of April 2020, obviously, I went into the hospital to be induced. So for those of you who don't know what induction is or being induced is, when you get to a certain point in your pregnancy where baby just isn't coming, so usually it's past like 41 weeks, you'll go into the hospital and they'll start your labour for you if your labour won't start by itself. I was 41 weeks and 5 days pregnant when they brought me in. Cassidy was not coming out for anything. I tried walking, spicy food, pineapple, you know, everything they tell you to try. I tried, none of it worked. I've already had to transfer a baby onto my lap to finish off the rest of her bottle that she didn't eat, so guess we've got a new special guest. So my induction had been planned for a good 2 weeks. It wasn't something that it isn't something that gets sprung on you. So I knew it was coming. I knew that I was being induced, and on the day they'll ring you up and they'll tell you, hey, can you come in the next hour, etc, etc. We were expecting a call about 2 p.m, you know, get in there midday, but we got a call at I think about 9 a.m. telling us to be there for 10. So because of this whole COVID-19 thing that's been going on at the moment, my mum, who was my birth partner, unfortunately couldn't be there with me. So I had to go in alone, and I was alone all the way up until my labour actually started. So they took me in and they put me in kind of a ward. So there were 2 other women on the ward with me. There was a really nice lady next to me who, for the life of her, just couldn't get her baby out either. She had been there, I think, for 2 days at that point and was just getting very anxious. And there was another lady opposite me who was the sweetest woman ever. She gave me so much advice, and I really hope she's doing well because she kept me sane for the time that I was in that ward. So when I was first there, they put me on a monitor, and it's 2 straps that go around your belly. I'll insert a picture here of what it looks like. It's 2 straps that go on your belly. One of them monitors your contractions and one of them monitors baby's heart rate. So I was put on that when I got there, and you stay on that for an hour just to make sure that baby's okay and that you're not actually in labour, because then there would be no point in them doing the induction. You just go straight down to the labour ward. So at that point, baby's heart rate was perfectly fine, as it had been throughout the whole of my pregnancy. But I was getting like tightenings and contractions that I couldn't really feel. So at that point, I'd been 1 centimetre dilated for I think about 3 weeks at that point. So I was really fed up. I knew that I was still 1 centimetre dilated and that whatever was going on today would have to dilate me more. So at 12 p.m, 2 midwives came in, and they took me... Can you be quiet, young lady? And they took me to go and get a Cook's balloon inserted. I don't expect you to know what that is, to be honest. I didn't know what it was. So what a Cook's balloon is, I'll put a picture up there because it's really hard to explain. It's basically 2 fluid-filled balloons. One of them goes inside your cervix, one of them goes on the outside, and they basically just push against each other to try and dilate your cervix, try and, you know, get things started. So when it was put in, I had to have gas and air because it was really quite uncomfortable. I wouldn't say it was painful, more uncomfortable, but I needed those drugs. So it had been put in, I'd come down from the gas and air and I'd walked back to my bed, and that's when I started getting really, really bad contractions. And at the time I didn't know they were contractions. I thought they were just mild cramps, because you get told, oh yeah, a little bit of cramping. No, they were contractions. So they gave me 2 ibuprofen and a hydrocodone to try and help with that, because there wasn't really any gas and air on the ward and I didn't want to be sat there puffing on gas and air. So those contractions lasted for 2 hours and then they faded out. At that point I had to be taken off for a mandatory COVID-19 test that they've started on all maternity wards in the UK. My experience with the COVID-19 test, the first one that I had, was absolutely horrible. So I had just eaten lunch, they took me in, they put the one at the back of my throat and I threw up. They did the ones in my nose and that made me throw up as well. So all round, that was a horrible experience, and being there alone wasn't very nice. So I was a little bit stressed out for the rest of the day. So the thing with the cook balloon is that it has to stay in for a minimum of 12 hours and a maximum of 24, meaning that when I had it put in at 12 in the afternoon, it wouldn't be coming out until after 12 AM. So really it was a whole day thing of me just sitting in my bed doing nothing. So the next morning at around 9 AM, a couple midwives came in and they took me down to the delivery suite, where they would see how much I had dilated and if they could break my waters or not. If they couldn't, then they'd have to put a pessary in, which is like a gel that's supposed to dilate your cervix a bit more. So I got into the room where Cassidy was supposed to be born. They took the balloon out, checked how dilated I was, and I was 3 centimetres, which meant they could break my waters. So my waters were broke with kind of like a hook, like a crochet hook. That's what it looks like anyways. They broke my waters and kind of asked me, did I want to go onto an oxytocin drip, which basically kickstarts your contractions hard and fast so that things get started a lot quicker, or did I want to let, nature take its course, au natural, everything like that. So I obviously chose the drip. I was, nearly 42 weeks pregnant, very, very fed up of having a baby inside of me. Just wanted her out, to be honest. So at that point my contractions, they'd started, they were hard, they were fast, they didn't build up like they would during a natural labour, because with the hormone that they give you, it doesn't really get a chance to do that. They start off hard and they stay hard, really. So in the beginning, my pain relief was gas and air, which I had all throughout my labour, to be honest. I think it honestly saved my life. I also started dancing and singing. I don't remember the dancing part, but my midwives said that I was kind of like shaking my hips and everything in their faces to try and take away the pain while on gas and air, obviously. So I was checked again at about 1 PM and I was 7 centimetres dilated, so I had got to 7 centimetres all by myself with gas and air, which I was very proud of. At that point I couldn't handle the pain anymore. It had just got too much. So I requested a epidural. The anaesthesiologist came in and he offered me a spinal block, which is like an epidural. It does the same thing, but it's quicker and it's stronger. So I had a spinal block and then I had an epidural placed in. And that's kind of where things went downhill. So at that point my body started hyperstimulating because of the oxytocin drip that was still in place, which is when you get too many contractions too close together and they're way too strong, so your body just can't handle it. My heart rate skyrocketed, so they had to put a clip onto Cassidy's head that monitored her heartbeat because ours was so close together. So she had that on her head for the rest of my labour. At about 3 PM I was checked again and I had got to 8 centimetres dilated. I had barely progressed since getting my epidural. So Cassidy throughout pregnancy and throughout labour was back to back, meaning that her spine was basically up against my spine. This means that her head couldn't push down on my cervix properly, so I couldn't properly dilate, and she just really couldn't come out. I stayed 8 centimetres dilated until about 8 p.m. that night on the 30th of April. At that point, they brought in some doctors and told me I needed a C-section, really, because she was not coming on her own. My cervix wasn't doing anything. It had been hours of labour at that point and nothing was happening, so I just decided that a C-section would probably be my best bet. It would be the safest option for Cassidy to come out. So that was what we went with. They took me into the theatre and they amp up your epidural, so they give you more drugs basically through your epidural. You are awake the whole time. You are laid on an operating table, wide awake. As Cassidy was being born, it's not a very nice feeling, I will tell you that. You can't feel any pain, but you do feel somebody moving around your organs. It's not a very nice experience. So to combat that, I was singing Dance Monkey. So as Cassidy was, birthed, I was singing Dance Monkey to her. Cassidy Quint was born at 9:08 p.m. on April 30th. Always forget that, I get it mixed up with the 29th. Everything was fine at that point. I had a blood transfusion because my iron was really low and I was just a little bit poorly, but other than that, perfectly fine. I had to stay overnight because obviously I'd had a C-section. I was breastfeeding at first, and I had a blood transfusion. They had to make sure I was okay. So they brought me up to the ward, and at that point I had the most excruciating pain in my right shoulder, and I had no idea what it was. I thought I'd somehow pulled a muscle lifting up Cassidy, because Cassidy was born at 9 pounds 13 ounces. She was a chunker. I thought nothing of it. I was like, I'll be fine. It's just a bit of muscle pain. I got sent home the next morning. I'd had all my drugs. I was able to walk around fine. I had to carry my stomach, which wasn't very nice because it's really, really tender when you get a C-section. It is a major abdominal surgery, so it's not very nice. So I spent the day at home. It was amazing. I was finally in my own bed. I've been at the hospital for a couple of nights and I was just so excited to have Cassidy, for her to be able to sleep in her cot, me to be able to sleep here. It was amazing. The day after I got home, a community midwife came over to check over me and to check over my baby. Cassidy had jaundice when she was born, which was confirmed. She's perfectly fine now, but she did as she was born. She's a little bit yellow, a little bit tan. But my midwife wasn't really concerned about that, because when I explained my symptom of the right shoulder pain, she told me that was a symptom of internal bleeding. I was rushed up the hospital 23 hours after I got home, which to somebody who absolutely hated hospitals and hated being alone in hospitals because of COVID-19, it was the worst thing that could happen. I sobbed the whole way up there. When I got up, they took some bloods. They just wanted to really check what was going on with me. When my bloods came back, I had the blood count of somebody who had just chopped off an arm. So I was losing blood, but they didn't know how. My iron was also really, really low. I had iron deficiency at the end of my pregnancy. I had anemia. I still am really anemic because of everything that went on after birth, but I'm getting there, I'm getting better. So they then took me for a CT scan. Cassidy was at the hospital with me because obviously I was breastfeeding at first, so I needed her with me really. I wasn't going to switch to formula 2 days after I'd given birth. No thank you. So they took me for a CT scan, which was kind of cool. It's quite a cool experience. They inject you with a fluid when you go in, which helps them, see everything that's going on, and it makes you feel like you're peeing yourself. Makes you feel like you're on a tanning bed because you get really, really warm and you get a metallic taste in your mouth. I'm sorry if you can hear people talking. My family are being very noisy downstairs, gossiping and gushing over the dog. So the CT scan confirmed that I had been internally bleeding. It had somehow sorted itself out, but they had, when I had the C-section, they had forgot to close off a blood vessel, so that was just kind of going off. And I didn't mention it to anyone, so I was told that I really should have told somebody about that right shoulder pain. So for anybody who, you know, has a C-section or any kind of surgery, if you get pain in your right shoulder, and I mean like excruciating pain, like it's horrible, please mention it to somebody, because I didn't and I risked my life, to be honest. How I was still up and breastfeeding and, you know, alive is beyond me. So on Monday the 4th, 5 days after I'd gone in for my induction, my dog is barking, 5 days after I'd gone in for my induction, I thought I was finally coming home, everything was fine, I was better, I could go home, Cassidy was better, she could go home. I was just really excited to go back, sleep in my own bed, be with my family. And then they came in and they told me my COVID-19 results. So when I got back to the hospital, because obviously I was readmitted, I had to do another COVID-19 test. So they came in the night I was transferred back up to the ward, did the test, it was all fine, I thought I was fine, I had no symptoms. Oh, I was like, yeah, it was negative on the 29th, it's obviously going to be negative again. They came to me on Monday the 4th in the morning and told me my test results had come back inconclusive, meaning that they couldn't say if I had it or I didn't have it. Because of that, I was moved on to the COVID-19 section of the maternity ward. Because obviously if I had it, they didn't want to risk the lives of anyone else, I didn't want to risk the lives of anyone else, I was surrounded by other newborn babies, it would have been really selfish. They asked me if I wanted another test to confirm or deny it, and I did deny that test because I was going home anyways. We were just going to self-isolate for 14 days, just in case, because I had a horrible experience with the COVID-19 tests and I didn't want to put myself through that again after everything that I'd been through. So I was put into a room. I think I have like a picture of it, it'll be up there. I was put into a room with Cassidy and we stayed there. I had to have a mask on the whole time, and whenever somebody would come in, they would be in full PPE. We were only there for about 4 more hours at that point because I was being released that day anyways. We were both happy and healthy. But it was quite a surreal experience, and it's not something that you think you'd ever go through, if you get what I mean. So I was released at 2 p.m. on the 5th of May 2020 and I finally got to go home. Haven't been back to the hospital since. Me and Cassidy are both happy and healthy, and even though my birth was, I would call it traumatic, I think it was quite terrible. I don't think it was a nice birth at all. It wasn't what I planned. I planned to have a water birth with just gas and air, so it was so far away from that. But we are thriving, we're doing great. Cassidy's doing just fine. She does have baby acne at the moment, which isn't great, but other than that, both of us are perfectly healthy. I'm getting back on track and healing okay. And yeah, I'm so thankful for the NHS and for everything they did. There is a global crisis going on right now, and the midwives and doctors were so friendly and helpful and kind. They supported me the whole time I was there. If I needed anything, they'd help. I don't think the NHS gets enough praise anyways, and I think they deserve so much more with everything that's going on right now. That community midwife kind of saved my life in a way. Since when I went back to the hospital, I had a blood transfusion and an iron transfusion again to get everything back up. Without that, I wouldn't be here right now. So thank you to the community midwife. So I think that's it for my birth and labour story. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, you know, comment, all of that stuff. I really do want to start this YouTube channel up. I want to get this somewhere. I want to share my experience being a teen mum. Obviously I have a gorgeous daughter. She isn't camera shy at all, so I'm looking forward to making some more videos. So yeah, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.